Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. It always seems like some good things happen to SMU when I go on a little vacation. Well, as I was landing back in Dallas Sunday night, got the news that SMU had landed North Texas defensive end Cam Robertson out of the transfer portal. This is a big pickup for SMU. We're going to talk about why in just a second. But look, this is a player that addresses a position of need for SMU at that defensive end spot. And when I look at Cam Robertson, I see a guy who's coming off of a freshman All-Conference USA season with the Mean Green, 15 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack in 14 games. That might not jump out at you, but remember, a true freshman last year at 6'4", 238, listed on the North Texas website, is a guy coming out of high school from the Plano area, went to Pope John Paul, right down the road from where I live, and ends up going to North Texas, where he breaks out, has a really encouraging freshman season, a player that I think can go a bunch of different ways. We'll talk about why in just a few minutes. But we had some good, tidbits on him as he entered the portal. We mentioned that SMU is in the mix. But our national reporter, Matt Zenitz, had some quotes. I want to read them to you before we jump into what this means for SMU from a Power 5 general manager and then a Power 5 personnel director. Quote, "You can see the developmental strength and solid functional athleticism. Not a freak, but a solid player with 3 years of eligibility left who happens to benefit from the slim market." That coming from the Power 5 general manager. And then, quote, "I think once he adds that strength and once he improves on some other elements of his game, he's going to take off. I think he'll contribute next year in 2023. How much, I think, is the big question. But I think when you're really going to see him take off is probably the second year at his new spot." So SMU brings in Cam Robertson, and this is perfectly timed if you're the Mustangs. As you're seeing on some of the highlights here that Cam had posted on Twitter, he's a guy that comes off this freshman season and enters a room now where I think he could play 2 spots for SMU. And they're going to get him in this summer. He'll get into the strength and conditioning program. I mentioned his 6'4" frame. 238 is what he's listed at. I could see him getting bigger over the course of his career and playing that strong side defensive end spot. Now, he is a guy that rushes the passer well, affects quarterbacks, and that means he could be very well at that bandit spot for SMU as well. That works out well for SMU when you look at what you have at that position. You have Nelson Paul returning for his final season of college eligibility. And like the Power 5 personnel director said, he's going to be then walking into that room in the 2024 season where he's going to have that opportunity to really make that next splash. I was talking with another source of mine, and they kind of reiterated what those Power 5 general manager and personnel directors kind of said. And he's got above average athleticism, or he's got average athleticism, solid size and length, good functional strength with room to continue to grow. As you see him playing against SMU when they had the backups in this year against North Texas on one of those clips. And I think the versatility that Cam Robertson is going to bring for Scott Simons is something we continue to see them love about defensive linemen. We saw this spring what they did moving guys like Elijah Chapman, Devere Levelston, Elijah Roberts even along the defensive line and creating different personnel groupings. I think that's something that Cam Robertson really brings to the table, and I like that a lot about him. I'm really excited for him to continue to develop under Calvin Thibodeau's direction now. Calvin Thibodeau did a great job recruiting him. If you're an ontheponyexpress.com subscriber, you know that when he entered the portal, he came right to SMU's campus. He came in for an unofficial visit, and then he officially visited Colorado. He also had offers from the likes of Cincinnati, Cal, Indiana, multiple other programs pursuing him. But then he officially visited SMU this past weekend, and I think obviously that sealed the deal for him. I feel like coming off that unofficial visit, he had a good idea of what he wanted to do. He took that visit to Colorado. Deion Sanders and co were after him, but SMU cemented where he was going with that official visit. And I think he had other suitors that he didn't even report coming after him as well. That's just where his recruitment kind of was going coming out of the transfer portal. So you bring in Cam Robertson now. And when you're looking ahead to the future after you lose Nelson Paul, you'll have Isaiah Smith, who is pretty much a pure bandit, a pure pass rusher. You're going to get Jaden Jones back, who missed the spring. And Jaden Jones is kind of similar to Cam Robertson in the sense that maybe he's able to be moved around a little bit. You could go a little smaller, playing him at strong side defensive end, or you could play Cam Robertson over there, and you could have a little bit more size with a Cam Robertson or Jaden Jones out there on the edge at that bandit spot. So again, it adds versatility. It adds a player who really has his best football ahead of him, in my opinion. This was a really nice pickup for SMU. When he entered the portal, we knew and confirmed there was going to be interest from SMU, and you got to give them kudos for stepping right up and sealing this one pretty quickly. There's a lot of support from some of the guys I saw on social media congratulating him on his decision. So SMU just continues to add players from the transfer portal and continues to add players that when you look at the culture of this team, and this is very important watching what they do kind of down the stretch with some of these last remaining spots, guys that they know are going to fit in. In Cam Robertson, you bring in a local guy who knows a good bit of the players on the roster and has gotten to know more as he took that official visit and unofficial visit. You have to find the right fits. Coming off of the spring practices, I felt like that was one of the big keys around the roster and just overall vibe around spring. These guys really seem to vibe well, and the SMU coaching staff does a nice job paying attention to that. This is not one of those players that's going to rock the boat or be a high risk. This is a safe play that can also give you a high reward. So anytime you can hurt now one of your conference foes by taking one of their all freshman players on the league team, that's a good thing. And SMU did just that, taking him from North Texas, who has seen multiple other top players enter the transfer portal since spring ball ended. What's next for SMU? Look, the transfer portal window has ended now. That ended April 30th on Sunday. And now we'll probably see the last remaining kind of guys go into the portal. They had to have entered by Sunday. It'll take 24 to 48 hours for some of them to show up. I'm interested to see if anybody else pops in there from SMU or just kind of how the roster looks, if there are any tweaks and guys that go in from SMU's side of things. That's going to be something to watch over the next now 36 hours as I'm sitting here recording this podcast. As far as what's next for the roster, we've continued to kind of update you guys on what they're after. And I think there's no question they're after, obviously, five-star wide receiver Jordan Hudson from TCU, former five-star wide receiver Jordan Hudson from TCU, as well as his teammate, Kyron Chambers in the secondary. Those are two big fish still out there for SMU. SMU very much involved, very much the favorite for both players. And then you go into, all right, what's next? What's next once you can get those guys formally on board? And I still think they want to find another safety type of player. Kyron Chambers can certainly fit that if they get him on campus and decide that's the spot for him. But they can also go out and get another defensive back that can play a safety spot. And I still think that's on their radar. I still think that's something they want to do and address. And so SMU continues to go after those guys. We've talked about the Rhode Island defensive back, Antonio Carter. I still think that's going to be a tough pull for them with the offers he's received now, but they're still hunting for that safety position. I still think they're relatively set at linebacker after adding Kobe Wilson, who could come in and push right away, potentially be a starter alongside Ahmad Walker at that linebacker position, and certainly push Jaquandis Burns, Chris Adamora, and Alex Kilgore and Cam Farrar in that linebacker room. And of course, Brandon Maizano comes this summer as well. The defensive line position, that's going to be the interesting one. They've added a defensive end now in Cam Robertson. Now they still want to add that defensive tackle. We've talked about Judah Colo, who's still out there. I'm interested to see if SMU presses there. Robbie Harrison, the big defensive tackle from Arizona State, is one to certainly watch as well. See if they can get him on campus for a visit. And then they're also still after a tight end, a guy that can move the pile a little bit for them in the run blocking game, kind of like an H-back style tight end. RJ Maryland continues to add size. I think he's up to about 230-ish right now, and he looks like a grown man, and we obviously know and see the potential of stardom for him after his freshman season and as he continues to develop his body. But they need that extra piece in the run blocking game, and I feel like they're continuing to target that in the transfer portal. We've dropped some notes on a target for SMU in that regard, so be sure to subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for that. And as we know, they're also still always looking for that potential offensive lineman to add depth into the mix, and SMU's after one as well on that front. So stay tuned for more details on that. Now, recruiting is heating up for SMU as well. And this is the time of year where the coaches get out and they see a lot of these prospects. They see some of their commitments, going to go see Tyler Aronson, getting out and seeing Jamari Cawley at South Oak Cliff once he's back in action. And now they're continuing to extend more offers in the 2024 class. And we're going to talk about some of them right now. And the one I want to lead off with is Sterling Brooks. Big defensive tackle out of North Crowley High School. And he is somebody that just picked up his first offer from SMU. So, of course, as you see there on the screen, the On3 recruiting prediction machine sits as SMU being the favorite for Sterling Brooks, a 6'5", 330-pounder out of the nearby program, picked up his first offer last week. We've got his reaction to that offer at ontheponyexpress.com, a player that obviously Calvin Thibodeau went out, liked what he saw, and went ahead and offered. He was on SMU's campus twice this spring and got in for visits. So the Mustangs already doing a good job getting him to campus, and he's certainly a guy on the radar. Programs like TCU, Boise State, Texas State are among those keeping in touch with him right now. And so he's squarely on the radar for SMU, and a guy that when you look at what they need long term, they need guys that have that 330-pound frame to replace a Jordan Miller long term. Obviously, they had Kevin Allen, who's going to be a big defensive tackle for them, but they've been looking for a nose, and a nose is really hard to find in these recruiting classes because that size is so coveted, and it's so hard to get players that can play and move the way SMU coaches and coaches around the country really want to see in regards to being able to be athletic at that size. And they certainly found that from what it seems in Sterling Brooks. And then they went out and offered a guy on the other side of the ball just today, or really Sunday night, and that's Tobias Steps out at Lancaster High School, 2024 prospect who is continuing to rise up the recruiting ranks and just overall adding offers from TCU, UTSA, Texas State, and others. But look at SMU there, the early On3 recruiting prediction machine favorite. And this is the type of player that you like to see an offer go out to. 6'6", 260. I'd imagine SMU gets him to campus here soon and starts their press for him. They dished out this offer, and Garen Justice signed off on it. And I think he's somebody that, if you're SMU, this is a type of player that you should be recruiting because of two reasons. You got the local ties. Lancaster High School, one of the top talent producing programs in the DFW area, as well as I like the fact that he's 6'6" and 260 pounds. You can add some weight onto him while continuing to keep that athletic build that he has. That's something they've done with Marcus Bryant in the past, as well as others. So a really nice offer going out to Tobias Steps, during the spring evaluation period. The SMU coaching staff continues to hit the road, though, and they've been a little bit all over, but they did dish out another local offer in 2025, four-star tight end, Kiadi Armstrong out of Jasper High School, 6'5", 250. TCU leads the on-3 recruiting prediction machine here after they've got him on campus. But SMU now in the mix. They extended the offer early enough that maybe they can find some footing in this recruitment and battle programs like Baylor and Texas A&M when it comes time for a decision from Armstrong. He's a top 10 tight end in the country, number 181 overall in the on-3 industry ranking. He's just on the cusp of being a 4-star, 4-on-3, but he's also already in the on 300 4-on-3. So a guy that is certainly nationally known already. I think his recruitment's only going to pick up more. And I mentioned going out of state and kind of going around the country. SMU dished out another big defensive tackle offer, another prospect that SMU is first to offer, and that is Fort Lauderdale St. Thomas Aquinas defensive lineman Brandon Joseph Jr. He's a 2025 prospect. SMU's first to offer. His RPM will get updated there, and it'll at least show SMU being the top one right now. But a 6'3", 290-pounder who comes from one of the top programs in the Sunshine State. That St. Thomas Aquinas program continues to churn out players left and right. And so it's always good when you get out and you do a little national recruiting here and there with Maurice Crum extending that offer. That's the type of player that you want to go after. You want to go after a well-known program. You want to be able to kind of find a guy early enough and maybe make a wave by being first to offer. Well, they're doing just that and trying that approach with Brandon Joseph Jr. Out of St. Thomas Aquinas in the home state of myself, the Sunshine State, in Brandon Joseph. So I really like that offer. I liked his film. It's kind of hard to find things on him right now, though. You had to go on a Max Preps and catch his highlights on that platform, which is kind of rare sometimes. But he's a prospect to certainly know now. And then I was actually out at Aledo High School Monday morning. No rest for the weary. I'll be going to Duncanville Monday afternoon as well, where SMU always tries to recruit and got Lamadrick Spencer out of course, a guy who had multiple offers to his name, and he's set to graduate. He was at the spring game, but Chris Johnson at Aledo, a 4-star for on 3. He's a really talented cornerback who I think is, going to give SMU a look. His father played at Louisville, and so they're heavily involved. Arizona State is heavily involved with Brian Carrington recruiting him. But SMU is a newish offer for him. He was at the spring game. He was able to catch the Mustangs in action. He's a member of the On 300, sitting as a top 30 corner in the country. And he is going to try and set up a visit here soon to SMU from what he told me. So look for his full reaction. He's a guy that stands at 6'1", 175, has an encouraging track time for him under his belt this spring. And I believe he's going to regionals for track, I think on the relay team for Aledo, but I could be wrong on that. But somebody that I like that he is as long as he is. He's got some size to him in terms of height. He just needs to continue to fill out. But a really talented prospect who has good genes with his dad playing at Louisville back in the day. So I did go see Chris Johnson on Monday as well. And we'll have, again, his full reaction to the offer and kind of what's next for him on the ponyexpress.com later on this week. So look for that. When it comes to this time of year, I think it's one of the best times of year. And here's why. One, you're getting out if you're a college coach and you're able to see these guys when there's not much to be gained, in a sense that they're not preparing week in, week out for their high school season. They're not getting ready for district playoffs or the state playoffs and anything like that. So you really understand how these guys work and what their mindset is. And for me, I like going out to spring ball. It's a good time to, of course, get out and watch a lot of these players in person and get to know them, like I did with Chris Johnson, getting to catch up with him. And for SMU and colleges across the country, this is that time of year when you want to do that and start building those relationships with players that are going to be future potential prospects that you really want to, target and recruit. And that's the time to do this. And it's just, I think it's a really good time of year. You get to see these high school prospects really try to earn offers. There's tape during the season. There's those limited evaluation points for coaching staffs over the course of a season. They're not allowed to get out, and they don't get out as much as we do in the recruiting industry for the most part. They get to see a prospect in person really once a year, but then they get to go to their high school and they get to go watch them practice in the spring. And you get an idea of what type of a player and person you're getting by how he works when this is that time of year where guys are trying to earn offers. They're trying to earn that opportunity and make you feel better about your evaluation if you already have an offer on the table, or they're trying to get you to make a move and jump into their recruitment. So I think SMU is certainly one of those programs that is going to hit the ground running. And just before jumping on this podcast and was doing a quick search right before we kind of get off here, SMU did dish out one more 2025 offer, and it goes out in a state that I don't know if SMU has offered a kid in North Carolina in quite some time. But Kyle Cooper, SMU safeties coach and special teams coordinator, was out at Asheville High School in North Carolina and extended an offer to 2025 safety Justin Rowe, who already has offers from Virginia Tech, Duke, Michigan, and others. This is where I think it's intriguing for SMU. We know their base is going to be largely in Texas. That's the plan. That's kind of what they go after. But this is one of those moments where SMU has gone out and extended their recruiting base and gone after a guy like Justin Rowe in a state that SMU doesn't really recruit that often. So an intriguing offer. Haven't gotten a chance to watch this film as it pretty much just went out just before we watched just before I started recording this podcast. But SMU going out and about and going a little national. I think there are a few positions that it's really hard to find guys that you feel really good about, and you have to go kind of outside the state sometimes to evaluate, because it's hard, at least in the early goings, when you're looking at prospects across the board, when you're trying to get guys in for unofficial visits and you're trying to get some interest drummed up. We saw some guys from Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas visit for SMU spring game. Maurice Crum has been spotted in Arkansas. He's been spotted in Florida now, and has also, been able to get out and go, into other states. We talked about last time on the podcast. They went out in Louisiana and offered some guys. This is one of those times of year where you've got to use your days wisely. And I like what SMU is doing in that sense, making sure every stone is unturned when it comes to finding prospects. So that's kind of the latest on SMU as far as roster building and adding in the transfer portal, as well as the latest on the recruiting front. But I'd be remiss if I didn't go back to Friday night. SMU wide receiver Rashee Rice gets drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs in the second round of the 2023 NFL draft. And what a moment for him. He's a guy that, you see the video coming out after him being drafted. He's got Pat Mahomes on one line, and he's FaceTiming Shane Buechele after getting picked with the 55th pick in the 2023 NFL draft. A really cool moment for Rashee. I saw a press release from the organization after the draft where they mentioned the ability to draft a player of Rashee Rice from SMU. And I think that's really, really cool with the ties with SMU, to Clark Hunt. He was a part of that press release saying that they were really, really excited to draft him. And Rashee Rice, gets to reunite with Shane Buechele. And I think that's going to be really special. So best of luck to Rashee Rice, who gets the call after an incredible career at SMU, and especially topped by this 2022 season. We also saw Jimmy Phillips get signed by the Green Bay Packers as an undrafted free agent, and Jalen Thomas gets signed by the Baltimore Ravens. So those are the three guys right now that are slated to be in the NFL. It wouldn't shock me if there were more that pop up, of course. But if you're looking at Rashee Rice, it doesn't get much better than that for him because of that familiarity with Shane Buechele. That's a guy that can help him get um, a better feel for what it's like to be around that organization and kind of what they expect. Obviously, when you have a quarterback like Pat Mahomes as well, that's going to be great for Rashee Rice. But just how they approach things. I mean, you're looking at a kid who is going to the Super Bowl champs now, and that's a high level of commitment that you have to walk in there on day one and understand how to compete, how to prepare, or else you're going to get on the bad side of Pat Mahomes right away. And many of the guys that have been key leaders to the Chiefs going on the run that they have. So, what an opportunity for Rashee Rice. Very happy for him. Very happy for Jalen Thomas and Jimmy Phillips as well. We'll continue to monitor who else gets picked up from the SMU side of things as undrafted free agents will still be coming off the board and things like that. But this is an awesome situation. I'll leave you with one quote. Chiefs Assistant General Manager Mike Organzi talking about Rashee Rice. Quote, he's a big kid and he's explosive. He'll go up and get the football, and once he catches it, he's violent. He's like a running back after the catch. That's a big part of our offense here. And boy, is it. The Chiefs are always fun to watch. They'll be more fun with Rashee Rice in the fold. So congrats to Rashee. Congrats to Jalen Thomas and Jimmy Phillips as well, getting drafted and signed, of course, as undrafted free agents. So wanted to go back and hit that as I know we haven't had a podcast since the draft started as well. So with that, guys, hope you enjoyed this podcast to kick off your week. We had that breaking news on Sunday, so I wanted to get you guys out. This one, we will have Toya Wilson, the SMU women's basketball coach, on the podcast tomorrow, Tuesday, kicking off your morning. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already and check out that interview with Toya. I think you guys will enjoy it. And we'll be back later this week, as always, with more of the On the Pony Express podcast. Thanks for listening, you guys, and we'll catch you next time.